Good afternoon. For the next few weeks in the seminar, we're going to be talking about the learning goals, the goals that you have written, that you'll be presenting to others. And I've read over all your goals and I've commented to each of you about them. And I just want to say a few things about them in general. I found them interesting. I found them enjoyable. They stimulated me to do a lot of thinking about some of my personal work and some of the things I've done as well. I've had a lot of extensive experience with goals. I've helped churches set goals, church groups set goals, agencies set goals. Um, a lot of work when I directed agencies in getting goals for programs that would be suitable actually for funders to be supporting them. But above all, I did a lot of work with individuals setting goals because I used goal-based evaluations annually with all of the employees who reported to me, and I reviewed all of the evaluations and goals for the employees that reported to those who reported to me. So I've done a lot of work on this, thought about it a lot, and I just wanted to share 5 specific things with you as we get ready for these discussions online that you will be doing and presenting. First is this, to keep in mind that these are your learning goals. They're not, they are limits, of course. They're determined by your ministry setting to some degree. They're determined by the expectations of this seminar and the internship experience, but still they are yours. And they may or may not coincide with what you're being paid to do. They are your goals for learning in this entire year. So they really are important, and it is on them that all evaluations of you will be based. The second thing that I would want to say is that these goals should be a combination of professional, personal identity growth and professional skills. They might be a combination of those. They might be separated into certain goals, but each of those elements should be present. And it might be best, and most of you did something like this, that a few of the goals are kind of skill oriented and a few are more professional, personal development oriented. Uh, Either way, though, it's all interrelated. Obviously, if it's a professional skill goal, a major part of that is your development professionally and personally. And likewise with the more identity-based goals, that only gets realized through specific deeds, through specific things you do. So they're related, but it's important to keep it in mind. Third, and this is so obvious that I probably could omit saying it, but your goals should be realistic and they should be appropriate to you, to your time commitment, to your ministry situation. They should be ambitious, I trust. I mean, every goal should be something you need to stretch for, something you need to, that's really going to extend you throughout the year. But while they should be things that are, a big reach, they should be reachable, is in fact. So they should be realistic and appropriate. And the fourth thing that I wanted to say about the goals is that, and I realize in saying this, this is one of the most difficult things about such goals. That is, there must be a quality of measurability to them. Obviously, the thing that makes it most useful is if there is a quality that is, or something about them that's quantifiable, that could be actually counted out or measured, and that's very difficult and not always entirely appropriate. But if possible, these goals should lend themselves to being able to be described at certain points of time, such that your status in working on one goal can be briefly described at the beginning of the quarter, and likewise then be described at the end of the quarter. And we trust there'll be a difference between those descriptions if there's any progress on the goal, and that the difference is the progress toward the goal, and that gives a measurable quality to it that sometimes can only be done through descriptions, even narrative descriptions. But the goals should lend themselves, regardless. They should always lend themselves to some kind of analysis and measurability. To the degree that they do so, they will be more effective and more useful and more important for you. And then finally, the fifth thing I want to say in all of this is most of you, I appreciated your goals and the resources you're going to use, and it comes down sometimes, and I've had this many times, worked with people with this, of the method of evaluation of the goals. It's probably the most important thing to think about once you've got the goal in mind. And I think all of you need to give continued thought to this, and that was probably the places where I thought some of your goal statements were a little weak, some of them. Worthwhile evaluation is always well structured. It's always planned at the beginning. When you begin an activity, how you're going to evaluate it at the end must be planned at the beginning, usually, to get an effective evaluation. It must be calendared. That is, there is a time limit, and at that limit, on that date, is when the evaluation will occur, obviously looking back to the time past. In all that, a lot of your evaluations must of necessity be based on conversations. In fact, almost all good evaluations should be interpersonal and involve conversations. They are important. But alone, they are, if just planned as a conversation will occur on the middle of December on a specific day or something, that will rarely be sufficient to give you worthwhile evaluation, worthwhile input into evaluating for yourself. Most evaluations require, even if it's purely done by conversation, an accepted structure ahead of time. These are the questions we're going to talk about in regard to this item. And your evaluator, whether a person, a committee, and certainly involves yourself, has this structure in mind. Usually some instruments are required. Some questionnaires that have been done ahead of time. Some systematic collection of data from that'll give worthwhile information about the achievement of the goal. Some review of reports, some outside examination, some generally accepted measurement technique. Something like that is almost always essential, and you need to plan that ahead sometimes so that you're on the way, maybe once a week, once a month, whatever. You're collecting that information to be used at the final evaluation that occurs. And the information gathered, the more targeted it is, the more useful it will be in making evaluations. All this sounds pretty difficult, and some of your goals are indeed as appropriately abstract, relate to spiritual, religious matters. Just to give you a kind of amusing example, however, most of us are from the Methodist traditions or traditions that have been affected by American revivalism in various ways. If you ever go back and read the manuals of particularly the 19th century revivals and camp meetings, you'll find that our predecessors found means of evaluation, they didn't use that word, but by which they could count progress even towards sanctifications in the congregations that gathered. Now, that's not where I'm at, I assure you. But nonetheless, even in religious and spiritual matters, it's important to have some ways that boil down to some specifics that are at least status-wise describable at different points of time and measurable in various ways in order to have evaluations that really tell us about our progress or lack thereof toward goals. This is all kind of business as usual in many, certainly nonprofits and a lot of businesses. People's salaries depend on their goal-based evaluation. So it's something we'll be, I mean, I've dealt with my whole career, and most of you will as well. So anyway, as we go forward in these next several weeks and discuss your personal learning goals, we'll do this discussion online primarily. Let's try to sort of help each other strengthen the goals, deepen the goal statements, and make them more useful tools for learning and guides, as they will be guides for this entire seminar year, for your entire internship. I can see I'm going to enjoy this year. I'm going to enjoy just this sort of little way in which I can be a little part of seeing your journeys toward your goals. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you all submit in the upcoming weeks. I hope you are too. Goodbye.